Did you know that our bodies tell way before than we speak? The way we control our bodies impacts the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we show up. About 93% of the communications that we engage with happens through the nonverbals or the body language. Our body language impacts our judgments and bases the inferences that we make. We lead to meaningful life choices like who do we date, who do we really choose as a partner, who do we hire, who do we promote. Our body language not only influences how others perceive us, but our nonverbals and our own body language impacts how we see ourselves. And that's what we are going to unfold today. Well, the overall concept of body language is huge, and therefore what I've done is I've divided into three parts. Part 1, where we are going to talk about how our body language impacts the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we position ourselves. Part 2 is going to be about how do we present ourselves with a large audience in a group. What is the posture that we should maintain? How do we exhibit confidence? And part 3 is going to be about reading body language of others. Well, I am really excited. I hope this excites you as well, because trust me, if we are able to unfold and decode the aspect of body language, it is going to impact the way we communicate. And we all know that communication impacts our interaction, impacts our perception, impacts our own brand, impacts our negotiation skills, and the ability to invest others. Let's unfold the part 1. Well, the first thing that we are going to explore today is the aspect of non-verbal expressions of power and dominance. What is this? These are expressions of expanding where you make yourselves big, you spread out, and you are basically opening up. Just like how we see in the animal kingdom. This is true across all humans. This happens when we really feel powerful chronically or in the moment. This really shows how universal and old this expression of power is. Interestingly, people who can see and people who are blind do the same thing when they win. It's arms wide open in the V and with slight of the chin up. What do we do when we feel powerless? We do exactly the opposite, right? And now before I get into this, let's do a bit of a audit for ourselves. How are you sitting right now? What's your posture? Are you laying down? Are you like this? Are you upright? How is it? Just check for yourself, and it is going to unfold a lot of things about you to yourself, right? Okay, so now what do we do when we feel powerless? We do exactly the opposite. We feel closed, we wrap ourselves around, we shrink ourselves, and again, this is true for both animals and humans. And what happens when we put together both the high and the low power? So we tend to complement each other's nonverbals, which means when someone comes across as powerful with their body language, we tend to do the opposite. We don't mirror them. And this is very evident in our day-to-day lives. Go back to the time or imagine when someone walks into the room and the way they exhibit themselves, the way they position themselves, the way they walk into the room, how they take the center stage or the center area of the room and appear very confident. And then there are those who come in with their head down, looking here and there, probably fidgeting with things that they have. They appear more closed. It feels like they are being very reluctant and essentially appear to be very timid. This is something that we would have seen when we were back in colleges or in our offices or within our families. Now remember, such behaviors are essentially influenced by the context. Now let me explain. Typically, students who have attained good marks or good grades, or employees who know that they have done well with their performances during their mid-year appraisals or end-of-year appraisals, tend to exhibit powerful nonverbals. Like they will be right up there, they will spread themselves everywhere they go, and it is very evident in their body language. And those who get poor marks or poor grades or poor performances, they typically would try to avoid people, avoid groups, exhibit less or no power with their nonverbals. Examples: the way they would raise their hands in a meeting, it will be very close to their body, versus those who would exhibit power, they would go like this. So those are those differences that you can see. Our nonverbals govern how others perceive and think about us. But the real question that I would want to unfold today is, do our nonverbals govern how we think and how we feel about ourselves? Now, let me tell you an interesting research anecdote that gives evidences that yes, our nonverbals not only govern how we are being perceived, but before that, it actually commands how we think about ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, and eventually leading to our actions accordingly. Now, before we move on, remember, understanding body language plays an important role in the way we show our work and the way we present ourselves. And if this interests you, or you are curious to know why showing our work is important, then do check out my previous video where I have talked about and unfolded why is it so important for us to share our work in today's times. Together, these concepts will help you to have some rich insights and make immense learning for yourself and the way you grow and the way you evolve. So don't miss to check it out. So what does the research say? So when we smile, we are happy, right? But when we are forced to smile, now you can do this. You can take a pen or a pencil and use this. So when you are forced to smile, you will realize that eventually you also start feeling happy, right? It's both ways. Similarly with power. When we simulate being powerful, we feel powerful, which means that our minds change our bodies, but it is also true that our bodies change our minds. And that's my humble submission to you all. Scientifically, this is related to the nature of hormones, the physiological aspects that happens or that exhibits in a human. So let me give you a bit of an overview from a physiological aspect. What do the powerful people really exhibit? Or those who we consider are really powerful, confident, what do they really exhibit? They exhibit high testosterone and low cortisols. These are the two important hormones. And this is true for all powerful leaders. Mostly, the myth is that people associate power only with testosterone. But it is a combination of both testosterone and cortisols. And how? The testosterone definitely has to be high, but your cortisols has to be low as well, right? Imagine if you have a leader who's really exhibiting power, but at the same time the cortisols are high and gets extremely reactive during stress situations. We don't want a leader like that. Rather, we want a leader who is exhibiting power, yet calm and composed and is able to withstand the stress. And therefore, it is important to understand that when you exhibit power, your testosterones are definitely up, but your cortisol's level has to go down. And the powerless exhibition exhibits cortisols to be high and testosterones to be low, right? So that's an interesting aspect for us to be aware of and realize that both the hormones matter. So there is this evidence that bodies can shape the mind and role changes can shape the mind. So example, what if you have a role change? Like, go back to the time if you had experienced a role change, you would realize that you had to put yourself in a situation or a position where you exhibited something that you were not. But by doing that, you eventually started exhibiting yourself like that. That's the power that we are trying to unfold today. Now let's get back to the research. Well, in a college, some of the students who were identified. Some had poor grades and some had good grades. Now, both these groups were asked to do power poses, like high power poses and low power poses, right? Now, what are power poses? They are actually opening out, spreading yourself, chin up, really feeling power like this. And the low power poses were like sitting like this, or sitting like this, or fidgeting with the phone. They were asked to do this. And interestingly, those who attained low grades were asked to do high power poses, and those who attained high grades were asked to do low power poses. Yep, I hope you are there with me. And then what really happened? Yeah. So what happened was and they were asked to do these poses for 2 minutes, just 2 minutes. So for example, if I was someone who had a low grade, I had to be in my power pose, and my power pose is like this, right? And it could be like this, it could be anything, something that opens you up. And those who had high grades, they were asked to be in a low power pose. So probably they were sitting down, they were like girdled, sorry about this, they wrapped themselves around. So that was the case. Now, after this 2 minutes, both the groups were asked to gamble, right? They were asked to play a game. Now, what really happened? The high power pose folks, remember, they were the ones with the low grades. They had high risk tolerance, about 86%, and the low power pose, remember, these were the ones who got the high grades. Their risk tolerance reduced to 60% from the time they came in. The testosterone for the high power pose increased by 20%, and the low power people, it decreased by 10%. The cortisol of the high power pose folks decreased by 25%, and the low power pose increased by 15% from baseline when they came in before the 2 minutes of posing. 2 minutes of posing changed the dynamics completely. The assumption was those who would be having lower grades, they will not take the risk. But it was not true. So, our non-verbals do govern how we think about ourselves. So what is it that I'm trying to submit here and help you unfold? Power posing for a few minutes can really change your life in a meaningful way. Yes, I'm asking you to do the power pose. I ask you how you are right now. If you have a check on how you are sitting, what's your posture, what's your position. Now, if you would want to try the power pose, your power pose could be anything, like this, Avenger pose, whatever. Try it for 2 minutes. And trust me, you will experience some magic. Now, it is important to know where and how to use this. You need to use this power pose or power posing when you have to make some decisions, when you have to present, when you have to pitch, when you are going in a job interview. Does this mean that you will actually sit with your arms wide open in front of an interviewer? No, that is not the case. Rather, remember, the idea is how do you simulate power by enacting that position to command the way you think and the way you feel yourself. Remember, this power posing concept or an action that I am telling you is not about you talking to other people but to yourself. What happens when you have to make a really important presentation or you are in a job interview? Your shoulders are down, looking into your notes, looking into your phone, and completely closed and wrapping yourself. Instead, try this. Change your posture, change your pose, right? Go back to what we discussed earlier, how our bodies shape our mind, and we have a control to control our body and hence control our minds and how we feel and think about ourselves. How do we do that? We do that by increasing the levels of testosterone and reducing the cortisols. And what is the easy way to do it? By actually exhibiting a power pose. So, find an isolated place, go to the bathroom, go to your room, shut yourself out, and be there with your power pose for about 2 minutes. And trust me, it will change a lot of things for you. You're going for a presentation, go to the washroom, lock yourself up, and try that power pose that you have. You have a job interview before you get in, go into the washroom, go into any place, right, which is isolated and you can only see yourself and have that power pose with you for 2 minutes and then see how you start feeling. Many powerful folks exactly do this before they get onto the stage, before they get onto the audience, they exhibit their power pose in isolation to feel and to change the way they think and feel about themselves. The question is, what is your power pose? Because our bodies change our minds change our behaviors, and our behaviors changes the outcomes that we make. Small actions can lead to big change. 2 minutes of power posing. That's it. That's the ask. Configure yourself, find a place for yourself to exhibit your power pose, and that's what I would want you to leave from this episode today. Now you know that our bodies tell before we speak. If we can control our bodies, we can also control the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we show up. Stay tuned for part 2 and part 3, where we will take this to another level. Subscribe to the channel. Don't miss to subscribe. It really encourages. And that's my time. Thank you for being there.